September 1944. Eastern France was already bruised by weeks of fighting, the countryside scarred by shell craters and burned-out vehicles. American forces pushing east had finally encircled a German garrison dug into what was, quite literally, a fortress. This wasn't a trench line hastily scraped into the dirt. It was stone. Thick walls built centuries earlier, commanding high ground, with narrow approaches covered by overlapping machine gun fire and artillery. Underground chambers burrowed deep enough to shrug off anything but the heaviest shells. Inside those walls were about 1,500 German troops under the command of a major who had decided, long before the Americans arrived, that surrender was not an option. The major was a product of a collapsing army and a rigid ideology. He had sworn an oath, he told his men, and he intended to keep it. No matter the odds, no matter the consequences, he would not surrender to the Americans. As U.S. units sealed the roads and tightened the ring, the situation inside the fortress grew tense. Supplies were limited. Morale was fragile. But the major projected absolute confidence. He believed defiance itself had power. General George S. Patton, commanding American forces in the sector, believed in something else entirely: efficiency. Before ordering a single shell fired, he followed his usual practice. An American officer was sent forward under a white flag. The message was straightforward and deliberately calm. Surrender now. Avoid unnecessary bloodshed. Your men will be treated as prisoners of war in accordance with the Geneva Convention. They would survive the war. It was not mercy for mercy's sake. It was simple arithmetic. A surrendered fortress cost no American lives and no time. The German major listened to the offer and rejected it theatrically. He wanted his refusal to echo. He wanted it to sound heroic. He told the messenger to inform General Patton that if he wanted the fortress, he would have to kill him to get it. It was the kind of line meant to inspire loyalty, the kind that turns a desperate situation into a legend, at least in the imagination of the man saying it. When the American officer returned and delivered the message, Patton did not explode in anger. He did not argue. According to those present, he barely paused. His response was short, flat, and chillingly practical. "I can arrange that." To Patton, the German major hadn't issued a challenge. He had stated a preference. And Patton was a man who took people at their word. What followed was not a traditional siege. It was not a slow tightening of the noose or a probing assault to test defenses. Patton began issuing orders designed to end the matter quickly and decisively. First came total encirclement. Not just blocking roads, but sealing the fortress completely. No supplies in. No messengers out. Water sources were identified and, where possible, cut off. The fortress might have stone walls, but the men inside still needed food, water, and hope. All three were about to disappear. Next, Patton ordered every heavy artillery piece within range to prepare firing solutions. This was not to be random shelling. Each gun was assigned specific targets. Walls. Gun emplacements. Known or suspected underground chambers. Thick stone could stop rifle fire. It could not stop repeated hits from 155mm shells landing on the same spot again and again. Then came air support. Not indiscriminate bombing, but precision strikes. Tank-busting aircraft were assigned specific structures inside the fortress complex. The command post, ammunition storage, artillery positions. Every strike had a purpose. Every explosion was meant to remove another layer of resistance. Finally, Patton ordered loudspeakers brought forward. This wasn't an afterthought. It was psychological warfare. The Germans inside would be told exactly what was going to happen and when. Not vague threats, but a timetable. At this hour, artillery begins. At this hour, air strikes. After that, the ground assault. The message wasn't rage. It was inevitability. Patton made one thing clear to his own commanders. This was not going to be a cautious, drawn-out operation. The German major wanted a fight to the death. He was going to get one, but it would be overwhelming, coordinated, and fast. Hours, not days. The Germans had been offered surrender. They refused. What came next was the consequence of that choice. The assault began at dawn, but not because dawn attacks were traditional. Patton wanted the night to do part of the work for him. Inside the fortress, German soldiers lay awake listening to the loudspeakers repeat the schedule. They had hours to think. Hours for doubt to creep in. Hours for some to realize that their commander's dramatic stand was likely to get them killed. When the sun rose, the artillery opened fire exactly as promised. Shells did not fall at random. They hammered the same sections of wall repeatedly, methodically turning stone into rubble. German artillery attempted to respond, but American counter-battery fire was immediate. German crews learned quickly that firing back simply marked their positions for destruction. Guns fell silent one by one. After hours of bombardment, the aircraft arrived. P-47 Thunderbolts roared in low, delivering precise strikes. The command post was hit repeatedly. Ammunition stores exploded, sending shockwaves through the fortress. The main gate was torn apart. Throughout it all, the loudspeakers continued, describing what had already happened, explaining what would come next, offering one last chance to surrender. And some Germans took it. At first, just a handful. Then more. Small groups slipped out through shattered walls with their hands raised, choosing captivity over death. The major responded by ordering some of them shot as traitors. That decision sealed his fate. Word spread fast. The men inside realized they were trapped between American firepower and a commander who would kill them for trying to live. By mid-morning, the fortress was broken. Multiple breaches yawned in the walls. Artillery positions were silent. The chain of command had been shattered by precision strikes. Then the American infantry moved in, not from a single direction, but through every breach at once. Tanks rolled forward and fired directly into openings. Flamethrowers cleared bunkers. Engineers collapsed remaining strongpoints with explosives. It was brutal, but it was not chaotic. Resistance was scattered and disorganized. Many German soldiers dropped their weapons almost immediately. Others fired briefly and then surrendered. The loudspeakers moved forward with the infantry, repeating the same message in German. Lay down your arms. You will live. The German major was found in what remained of his bunker, barricaded with a small group of loyal men. When American soldiers broke in, he raised his pistol. An American sergeant shot him. There was no speech. No ceremony. Just the end of a threat. The major had said Patton would have to kill him. That condition was fulfilled. The men with him surrendered immediately. From the first shell fired to the final surrender, less than 12 hours had passed. American casualties were minimal. A few wounded. No dead. German losses were severe. Around 200 killed, mostly during the bombardment. Hundreds wounded. The rest captured. When intelligence officers later examined the fortress, they found evidence that morale had been collapsing even before the assault. Notes from junior officers questioning the decision to fight. Evidence of soldiers executed for attempting to surrender. The major had believed defiance would inspire loyalty. Instead, it had terrified and trapped his men. Patton toured the fortress the next day. Witnesses noted that he showed no satisfaction, no triumph, just a blunt assessment. The major said we'd have to kill him. We did. That was all. Yet Patton also made a point of visiting wounded German prisoners, ensuring they received proper medical care alongside American wounded. This wasn't hypocrisy. It was his philosophy. Ruthless in combat, professional in victory. Word of the fortress spread quickly. Among American troops, it reinforced what they already knew. Patton always offered surrender first. Refusing it had consequences. Among German forces, the lesson was sharper. Patton's offers were not bluffs. His threats were not rhetoric. They were statements of fact. Some German officers later admitted they surrendered specifically because they'd heard about the fortress. They understood that defying Patton did not buy time or leverage. It simply increased the intensity of what followed. This was psychological warfare at its most effective, not through exaggeration, but through consistency. The German major had wanted to make a statement. What he actually did was get hundreds of his men killed or wounded for a position that held less than a day. The road junction fell. Patton's advance continued. The war moved on. There is an uncomfortable lesson here, one that goes beyond this single battle. Dramatic defiance sounds noble, but when facing overwhelming force, it rarely changes outcomes. It only increases casualties. The major said he would never surrender. Patton believed him and acted accordingly. In the end, the major got exactly what he asked for. And every other commander who heard the story learned to choose their words carefully. Because with Patton, challenges weren't deterrents. They were permission.